You didn't see nobody before?
Hell no. I just see two shooting choppers now. I see two shooting.
One rapper forewarned his own demise, while another dared his enemies to strike, leading to chilling consequences. These are some of the most disturbing final interviews from rappers. Julio Fulio, an up-and-coming Jacksonville artist, found himself entangled in deadly conflicts before his untimely end. Back in November 2021, he narrowly survived a drive-by outside a recording studio, dodging over 100 rounds of gunfire. But rather than keeping a low profile, he jumped on Instagram to flaunt his resilience. As Fulio's profile rose, so did the advice from interviewers urging him to distance himself from the streets. In a candid chat with Say Cheese, the host pressed Fulio on why he wouldn't leave that life behind. Fulio, however, was firm in his response, even as he made it clear he didn't want anyone else following the same path. A similar message came during his appearance on No Jumper after he suffered a gunshot wound to the foot. Despite the host's urging, Fulio showed little interest in turning his back on his dangerous lifestyle. In one of his final interviews, Fulio talked about getting signs that Florida wasn't the place to be, especially after he took a bullet to the foot. He mentioned staying in Jacksonville, but the message was clear. Trouble was all around. Unfortunately, Fulio didn't follow those warnings. On June 23rd, while celebrating his birthday in Tampa, he posted his location on social media without a second thought. By that night, gunfire erupted at the Holiday Inn parking lot where he was hanging out. 4 people were shot, and Fulio lost his life in the chaos. After the incident, Fulio's enemies didn't hold back. Ace released 2 diss tracks almost immediately, showing just how ruthless the streets can be. While the beef kept brewing, another rapper's last interview brought its own tragic undertone. Fat G's, a rising Philly rapper, gave a raw and candid interview that hit fans hard. His words carried the heavy truth of life in the streets. He wasn't sugarcoating anything. When interviewers tried to simplify the street dynamics he lived through, Fat G's pushed back, making it clear just how complicated and dangerous that world could be. Fans felt the authenticity in his voice, but no one could have predicted how prophetic his last interview would become. Just days after that conversation, Fat G's was gunned down in a drive-by. The same streets he warned about ultimately claimed his life, turning his final words into an eerie foreshadowing of his fate. "Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God." But he wasn't the only rapper with a sixth sense about danger. One of hip-hop's most iconic figures was trying to make peace just before he met the very violence he had been hoping to end. On February 24, 1997, just weeks before his tragic death, the Notorious Big gave his final interview on the set of his Hypnotize video. During this conversation, Biggie opened up about his next album, Life After Death. He got candid about Tupac Shakur's murder and the ripple effect it had on the culture. The chilling irony of his album's title wasn't lost on anyone as Biggie reflected on the rising violence in hip-hop. He spoke of settling disputes and fostering unity as if he could feel the storm brewing. That sense of foreboding gave the interview an unforgettable edge. Fast forward to March 9, 1997, exactly 6 months after Tupac's passing. Biggie was in Los Angeles, riding high on the buzz surrounding his latest project. But as he left a party at the Peterson Automotive Museum, fate delivered its cruel blow. A dark Chevy Impala rolled up beside his vehicle at a red light, and gunshots shattered the night. 4 bullets struck Biggie, one piercing his chest. Despite the frantic rush to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, it was too late. At just 24 years old, the Notorious Big was gone, leaving the hip-hop world in shock. Much like Tupac's murder, the streets grew eerily silent, and the rumor mill went wild. Theories ranged from crooked cops and gang disputes to high-level industry conspiracies. And while some still like to imagine Biggie living it up with Tupac and Elvis on a secret island, the reality of his loss forever changed the hip-hop landscape. Biggie's murder left everyone playing armchair detective, but his rival's final interview was downright haunting, full of insight just days before tragedy struck in Las Vegas. On September 4th, 1996, only a few days before his death, Tupac Shakur sat down with MTV, showing a side of himself that was looking beyond rap's feuds and stereotypes. He talked about moving past the drama and reshaping his public persona. Pac spoke candidly about the so-called East Coast versus West Coast beef, breaking it down as something far less sweeping, just two rappers with personal conflicts. He kept it real, trying to dispel the narrative of a coast-to-coast war, but only 3 days after that interview, the unthinkable happened. On September 7th, after attending a high-profile boxing match in Vegas, Tupac was riding passenger in a black BMW alongside Suge Knight. Out of nowhere, a white Cadillac rolled up and a hail of bullets erupted. Tupac was hit multiple times in the chest and arm. Despite emergency surgery, the damage was too severe. 6 days later, on September 13th, Tupac passed away at just 25 years old. Officially, the gunshot wounds led to cardiac arrest, but for fans and the hip-hop world, the cause was something much larger, a senseless cycle of violence that left them searching for answers. For decades, the case remained unsolved, a painful mystery lingering over the music community. Then in September 2023, everything changed. A shocking twist saw Keefe D charged in connection to Tupac's murder, breathing fresh energy into a case that had been cold for nearly 30 years. Fox's case may have gotten fresh heat after nearly 3 decades, but another West Coast pioneer's sudden passing left fans reeling and sparked theories that still swirl today. Eazy-E, the Compton-born rapper who helped catapult West Coast hip-hop to national prominence, was a cornerstone of NWA and a formidable force in the music industry. His final interview, recorded in January 1995, was a moment of candor that revealed not just the battles he faced, but also the ambitious plans he was gearing up for. He spoke openly about the challenges coming his way and even dropped hints about expanding into new ventures. Products like custom speakers and even a video game were on his horizon. It seemed like he had no intention of slowing down. But toward the end of the interview, something troubling stood out. Eazy's coughing fits. Just a month after that recording, his health deteriorated rapidly. On February 24, 1995, Eazy's crew found him at the studio, drenched in sweat and struggling to speak. Recognizing how serious the situation was, they rushed him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. The diagnosis was shocking: HIV/AIDS. Eazy kept it real with his fans, publicly revealing his diagnosis on March 16, 1995. But things were far worse than anyone had imagined. Just 10 days later, on March 26th, Eazy-E passed away from AIDS-related pneumonia at only 31 years old. His death rocked the hip-hop community, leaving more questions than answers. Over the years, his daughter E.B. Wright has worked tirelessly to uncover the truth, producing documentaries, exploring conspiracy theories, and examining how Eazy's lifestyle might have played a role in his sudden decline. The speculation surrounding Eazy's death has never truly faded. Meanwhile, another young artist's tragic story unfolded just as he was trying to turn his life around. XXXTentacion, born José Duane Onfroy, was making waves with his raw lyrics and electrifying presence. In his final interview with DJ Academics on June 12, 2018, X spoke candidly about redemption, personal growth, and leaving a positive impact. Only 20 years old, he seemed determined to change his narrative. But fate intervened. On June 18, 2018, just 6 days after that interview, X's life was violently cut short. After withdrawing $50,000 from the bank, he stopped at Riva Motorsports in Deerfield Beach, Florida. It was there, in broad daylight, that 2 masked gunmen ran up on him. The encounter escalated in moments, leaving XXXTentacion's promising future abruptly ended. One of the gunmen fired off shots and took off with X's Louis Vuitton bag full of cash. Tragically, X didn't survive. Although he was rushed to the hospital, he was pronounced dead shortly after. The news hit the community hard. Fans and peers alike were left mourning the senseless loss of such a promising young artist. Justice eventually caught up to the perpetrators. In March 2023, 3 men, Michael Boatwright, Dedrick Williams, and Trayvon Newsome, were all handed life sentences with no possibility of parole, convicted of first-degree murder and armed robbery. The 4th individual involved, Robert Allen, had already pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and cooperated with authorities, providing testimony that sealed his co-conspirators' fate. Meanwhile, another rising star's candid remarks in a final interview turned out to be a dangerous gamble. G-Money and NBA YoungBoy were once close, running together in Baton Rouge. But their bond soured after YoungBoy ended up behind bars. During his incarceration, G-Money aligned himself with YoungBoy's enemies, a move that left their relationship beyond repair. In 2017, G-Money sat down with Say Cheese for a headline-grabbing interview. He pulled back the curtain on his falling out with YoungBoy, airing grievances and escalating their feud. G-Money didn't mince words, dropping revelations that further fueled the bad blood. But he didn't stop there. Following the interview, G-Money released a track called Industry, taking direct shots at YoungBoy. In the song, he boasted about his success before rap, questioned YoungBoy's record deal, and painted himself as the real voice of Baton Rouge. "Baton Rouge, my city and his feelings, I swear," G-Money rapped. "A steady talking down, why a sneak dissin'? If you a man, come at me direct and watch you be missin'. I ain't with the tongue wrestling. I don't want to rap beef with you." This combination of open confrontation and public disses set the stage for their rivalry to spiral, ultimately becoming a defining and devastating chapter in Baton Rouge's hip-hop history. Following the release of Industry, G-Money's words hung in the air like a storm cloud over Baton Rouge. The track struck a nerve, and the tension between him and YoungBoy only deepened. While G-Money made it clear he wasn't interested in a rap beef, his confrontational tone and pointed lyrics suggested otherwise. He wasn't backing down, and the streets were paying close attention. But behind the scenes, things were escalating fast. The combination of public disses, interviews, and their intertwined histories created a powder keg. Baton Rouge's close-knit hip-hop community, already rife with rivalries and alliances, was thrown into chaos. Whispers of retaliation grew louder with every passing day as both sides appeared ready for whatever came next. Then, tragedy struck. On September 10, 2017, G-Money was shot and killed outside a recording studio. The news sent shockwaves through the city and beyond. Fans mourned the loss of a talented young artist whose career was just starting to take off. While the official motives behind the killing remain unclear, many pointed to the heated tensions between G-Money and YoungBoy as a contributing factor. In the aftermath, speculation ran rampant. People analyzed every lyric, every interview, trying to piece together what had led to such a senseless loss. G-Money's death became another chapter in the ongoing cycle of violence that has haunted Baton Rouge's hip-hop scene. And while his words and music remain, they serve as a stark reminder of how quickly things can spiral out of control in a world where personal and professional rivalries often blur into one. As the fallout from G-Money's death rippled through the community, the music industry took notice. Artists and fans alike grappled with what it meant to lose another promising talent to violence. G-Money's crew released a flood of unreleased tracks and collaborations in the months that followed, painting a picture of what could have been. Meanwhile, his rival, NBA YoungBoy, found himself under a microscope. Every move, every song, every interview was scrutinized for signs of guilt or grief. But instead of quelling the tension, the streets heated up even more. Baton Rouge became a city divided, with camps on both sides trading insults and threats. It wasn't just about music anymore. It was about loyalty, pride, and a deep-seated need to prove who held the crown in their hometown. Fans clung to every new track or verse, hoping for some resolution, but what they got was more fuel for the fire. The authorities took notice too. The police stepped up their presence in the neighborhoods most affected by the feud, while local leaders called for an end to the cycle of violence. But in a city where personal grudges run deep and street codes often outweigh official laws, those calls for peace largely went unanswered. Through it all, G-Money's legacy continued to grow. He became an icon for the potential loss too soon and a cautionary tale for those coming up in the game. Murals were painted, hashtags trended, and his music streamed more than ever as people tried to keep his memory alive. But for those who knew him, no amount of posthumous fame could replace the artist they lost. And the streets of Baton Rouge continued to feel his absence. As tensions rose between G-Money and NBA YoungBoy, the insults grew sharper. G-Money crossed a line by making bold claims about Youngboy's sister, a move that took their beef to a deeply personal level. Youngboy didn't let it slide. He fired back on his track Pour One, airing out how the relationship had turned sour. "Remember smoking weed with your little brother? Matter of fact, I used to call you my big brother. Then you did some foul. I had with my sister, then threw it in my face in front of the people on Insta." Meanwhile, G-Money's star continued to climb. He kept throwing verbal jabs at Youngboy and his crew, seemingly unfazed by the brewing storm. He moved like he was untouchable, still frequenting the same places, using the same studios. But the streets don't forget, and his boldness caught up with him. After a late studio session, just past 1 a.m., G-Money stepped outside. Shots rang out, and his life came to an abrupt and tragic end. As news of his death spread, fans couldn't help but connect it to the long-running feud. G-Money's unfiltered words had cost him dearly, making his demise another stark reminder of how real the stakes are when music and street beef collide. Not long after G-Money's death, the hip-hop world faced another devastating loss. Juice WRLD, known for his openness about his struggles with mental health and addiction, had recently spoken out on The Breakfast Club. He had kept it raw about the challenges he faced, resonating deeply with fans. On December 8, 2019, just months after that candid interview, Juice WRLD's story ended tragically. He suffered a fatal seizure at Chicago's Midway Airport, reportedly after ingesting multiple pills. The official cause was deemed an accidental overdose, leaving fans and the music community in shock. Juice WRLD's death underscored the very battles he'd been so honest about, amplifying the sense of loss and fueling a larger conversation about mental health and substance abuse in the industry. What's especially heartbreaking is that Juice WRLD had mentioned plans to check into rehab soon after that interview. He was working toward making positive changes, but his sudden passing left fans reeling, particularly because it came just as he was beginning to openly confront his struggles. His death sparked a crucial conversation about addiction and mental health, issues that disproportionately impact young artists navigating the pressures of fame and fortune. Another tragic story unfolded when a rapper's own words seemed to seal his fate. In an interview with DJ UTV, Bloodhound Jeff openly discussed being robbed of his watches and jewelry, not realizing that his comments would lead to devastating consequences. During the conversation, DJ U tried to warn Jeff about where his current path would take him, but the advice fell on deaf ears. Jeff, seemingly influenced by King Von's legacy, wasn't hiding his lifestyle. He took to Instagram Live, making cryptic statements that hinted at past violent acts. In one post, he referred to 10 bodies and marked the last 2 with graduation caps, a chilling metaphor that many saw as self-incrimination. In his music, Jeff's street life was a recurring theme. Tracks like 333 detailed his ongoing retaliation. "Then ran off with them watches. He should have knew that time was up." These lyrics, and others like them, reinforced his image as someone who believed in swift and decisive consequences for anyone who crossed him. Ultimately, Jeff's unfiltered words and bold actions painted a target on his back. His refusal to distance himself from the lifestyle he rapped about made it clear that he wasn't just telling stories, he was living them. This raw authenticity may have connected with fans, but it also made his untimely end all the more inevitable. Jeff's habit of flexing and self-snitching eventually sealed his fate. On June 8, 2024, it all came crashing down. Surveillance footage revealed Jeff and his crew making a move on an op in their neighborhood. The situation spiraled quickly, leading Jeff to follow his target into a house, unaware of the deadly ambush waiting inside. In the ensuing chaos, Jeff was hit by a barrage of gunfire, taking no less than 12 bullets. His crew rushed him to the hospital, but it was too late. Jeff's run was over. Meanwhile, another Chicago drill rapper's prophetic final interview left fans rattled. FBG Duck, known for his bold persona and sharp lyrics, sat down with DJ Vlad in July 2020. Duck spoke openly about surviving 2 separate shootings in Chicago, brushing off suggestions that he should leave the city. Even as he stood firm in his decision to stay, he acknowledged the constant danger he faced and the ops who were always gunning for him. Sadly, Duck's words foreshadowed the tragedy that followed. On August 4th, 2020, just weeks after that interview, Duck was targeted in a brazen daytime attack. While shopping in Chicago's upscale Gold Coast district, he was ambushed by members of the rival O-Block gang. Allegedly, a $100,000 bounty placed on Duck by King Von set the wheels in motion. 2 cars rolled up, and a hail of bullets ensued. Duck was struck multiple times in the chest and neck, and he didn't survive. The aftermath was swift. In 2021, 5 O-Block members, C-Murder, Muwop, Los, Zell Munna, and Zell Money, were hit with RICO charges for their alleged roles in Duck's murder. Another suspect, TZ, was arrested in 2023. While authorities worked to piece together the full story, the loss of Duck left a void in Chicago's drill scene. As Duck's killers faced justice, fans were left to reflect on another beloved rapper's final words, hints at personal struggles that would ultimately lead to his shocking farewell. Mac Miller's final interview with Vulture on August 28, 2018, hit on a deeply personal note. The conversation offered a glimpse into his thoughts and struggles just before his untimely death. Mac spoke openly about the pressures of fame and the toll it had taken on his mental health. He wasn't shy about his mistakes, especially those involving substance abuse, and his words carried a heavy weight, revealing both his determination to work on himself and the battles he was still facing. Less than 2 weeks later, the news broke. On September 7, 2018, Mac Miller died from an accidental overdose. He was just 26 years old. The music world was left reeling, and fans struggled to process the sudden loss of an artist whose talent had touched so many. The tragedy came as a painful reminder of the challenges that can come with success and the importance of mental health and self-care. Looking back at that Vulture interview, it feels haunting in hindsight. Mac was candid about his journey, his mistakes, his struggles, and his hopes for the future. But beneath the hopeful notes, there was a clear undercurrent of pain. His words, now frozen in time, echo a struggle that ended far too soon.